Good evening, viewers. We're here this evening on Facts in Focus. I'm here with my two guests, Mr. Tommy Descott, who is the candidate for the United Workers' Party for Castries South, and Mr. Titus Prevost, who is the UWP candidate for Babonneau. Today we are here to discuss the issues concerning so many topics that we have heard floating around, coming out from the United Workers' Party on their proposed 7-point SOS. And we know that many people have concerns. They do not really understand. They ask a lot of questions. They want to relate them to things that has happened in the past and how it relates to their everyday life and their future. These two gentlemen here today are going to break it down to you, make it easier for you to understand, and they're going to give it to you. They're both very experienced. Mr. Descott, as you know, was working with CDB, and he's a young man, and he worked with the government service for quite a number of years, so he understands what it is and what you would like. So he would be able to articulate those things to you. Mr. Prevost, of course, we know that he has recently was the head of CSME in Barbados. He too has a very good understanding of those issues, and I'm expecting a very interesting discourse with them this evening. We're going to begin our discussion, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Prevost. I want to ask you about the 2.5 health and security levy. You know about that. How has this levy impacted consumers in Saint Lucia?
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher, for having myself on this program. I'm sure Tommy will say the same when he still comes around. It's important for us to have that discussion on the 2.5% health and security tax because we're going to a general election, and we believe that this is not just about the politics. It's about things that affect people's lives and how people's lives can either get better or worse depending on how they choose to treat those important issues. So what is the 2.5% health and security tax? Well, first of all, in general economic principles, most countries that I know of that understand how an economy works does not impose new taxes or higher taxes in an environment where prices are rising. Now, this 2.5% health and security levy or tax was imposed by the current Labour administration when they came in office, or shortly after they came in office, at a time when the world was going through a COVID crisis. And the COVID crisis had led to shortages, worldwide shortages in a number of goods and services. And this was driven by the fact that transportation systems had come to a halt. There were no flights in and out. Shipping was restricted. Production of goods and services was seriously restricted because workers were not going to work. They were sick and at home. So businesses had to shut down. So obviously the supply of goods was restricted. And following the high point of the COVID crisis, we had significant transportation logistics, containers stuck in countries, ports not working. And therefore the prices of goods, ordinary goods in our market, kept rising and rising. And one would have thought that in an environment like that, any government that had a clue as to how an economy works would never have imposed an additional tax on the population across the entire spectrum of goods and services. But that is precisely what the Labour government did. And that is not a lie, it is the truth. And the impact was felt almost immediately. So we had what we call, in the first round of things, what we call headline inflation. The price of goods and services went up in relation, direct relation to that 2.5% health and security tax. But there is a deeper, more sinister implication and impact of that 2.5% health and security tax. It went into what we call areas that once prices rise, they do not go back down. And that is what all countries try to hedge against in terms of implementation of tax policy. That is, they try to avoid core inflation areas from rising. What do I mean? When the price, if the 2.5% health and security tax, the price of rent, for instance, would have gone up. The price of insurance would have gone up. Now, even after the COVID would have gone and global supplies of goods and services would have increased and you expect prices to fall, the price of the premium that you pay for your insurance does not go back down. The premium or the cost that would have gone in terms of transportation cost would not go back down. These core inflation issues, rent, the rent that businesses would have paid as a result of the 2.5%, the increased rent, even after the COVID would have gone down, that rent would not go back down. So we have a government that, through its one policy, very early in its tenure, caused the cost of living and the cost of doing business in Saint Lucia to rise and to stay high.
Yeah, but before you go on with the impact, I want you to break it down so that tell the layman out there, the young people, how does that 2.5% levy affect them
It has
directly?
It affected them directly because the ordinary cost.
And you can jump in here if you want to talk.
The ordinary cost of the normal tins of sardines and tuna fish and the cost that you would pay if you had a health insurance or an insurance policy, the cost of the goods on the shelf will have gone up.
Right.
Because you see, when transportation costs go up, the guys who haul the container from the port to the distribution agency, whether it's Massey or wherever, they would have increased their cost, and that cost has to be passed on to you and me, the consumer. So everyone, rich or poor, ended up paying more. But here's the difference: when you are poor, any increase affects you much more than the rich person, because if you're earning $1 and the price of something goes up by 10 cents, this is 10% of your $1 that is gone. You have 90 cents left. But if I'm earning $100 and the price on something goes up by 10 cents, it has not affected me as you. So this is really what has happened in our country. This is the impact that St. Lucians have felt. And, you know, what you see is the fact that after 4 years of having that crisis of costs go up, the response of the government was to take 70 items and say they are making them zero rated. And that is reflected in their report on their performance and how they treated with cost of living. 70 items, not 70 individual items, you know, Dr. Fletcher. 70 lines in what we call the harmonized system, how you describe goods. 70. And I want us to understand how deceptive this administration has been. You know, I'll take chicken. There are each part of a chicken has what you call an HS number. It describes the chicken for the purpose of trading the chicken. Okay. So a chicken wing has a different description for trading purposes than chicken breasts, than chicken backs.
Okay. Chicken legs.
Chicken legs. Okay. Similarly, tuna fish. You have different sizes of tuna fish and you have different HS numbers. So in the 70 items that were zero rated, of which 25 were already VAT exempt, the government says, this is my response to the high cost.
So wait. Let me get it, Tommy. 70 items he's saying, right?
Yeah.
And out of that 70, You're saying 20 was already?
Already.
25 was already.
25.
45
60
items.
45.
items, that is what you actually
Technically zero
rated.
rated.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And that was the government's response after 4 years. Now, you know, Dr. Fletcher and Tom will come in there.
Yeah.
The government,
Yeah,
the government could have initiated that, as feeble as it is. This could have been initiated or implemented a year into your administration, 2 years into your administration, 3 years into your administration. You wait on the eve of an election in the 4th year.
To zero rate 40 items.
Who,
45 items.
items.
Yes.
Who are you really fooling?
Yeah.
And the government still has the goal to report that in their quote-unquote achievements for 4 years as an achievement.
And is it on tuna fish?
And not all, but not all tuna fish, because
okay.
tuna fish has different sizes.
Yeah.
Right.
So you would have not noticed any change in the prices of the big size tuna fish.
No.
It was only targeted at the small size. So people walk to the supermarkets looking to see the price of tuna fish drop, and they were not seeing
Corned
it.
beef. That's
And corned beef.
expensive, right?
This is what it happened. So this is what has happened to Saint Lucian's over the last 4.5 years under this administration with its tax policy. Now I want you to, before Tommy comes in, contrast that with Alan Chastain's approach when he came in 2016. The very first thing he did was to reduce the VAT by 2.5%. Basically attempting to lower the cost of goods and services by 2.5% in the country, and in doing that, putting money into your pockets. The extra money you would have spent, you no longer had to spend it on those things.
So layman, practical example. They brought in the Alan Chastanet, reduce that by, that's what you're saying?
Yes, when he came in 2.5%, the VAT moved, the VAT dropped from 15% to 12.5%.
Right. So if you're spending your dollar to buy the corned beef, it's easier.
You'd have more, you'd pay less for the corned beef,
right.
and the extra money you now have, you can spend it on something.
And buy tuna fish, or buy the bread.
Have to go with
or
the
the
corned
chow
beef.
mein.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
So that's
what
what
it
you're
is.
saying, for the little man to
Yes.
know. But since this government, don't tell it to me.
So certainly, before I go to the benefits, we must understand that inflation is the worst tax on the poor.
Yes.
And that is something that we must understand. So, and no right-thinking government should exacerbate inflationary impact. You know. So, as Titus would have mentioned, the government would have fully known that inflation was on the rise. We had supply chain disruptions. We had all of these challenges. And yes, the final CIF price landed cost was higher, but the government had policy responses available, and the government kept saying it had absolutely nothing in its policy toolkit to respond to that. But then 6 months away from an election, the government instantly finds the creative policy measures to respond to that. And what, like Titus said, it was 70 items being zero rated, of which 25 was already exempt. Now, just to put in context, I think it's important to understand that outside of this tax, the government would have generated the most revenue in Saint Lucia's history over its recorded history. So the data suggests is that in 2024, this government generated $1.38 billion in tax revenues. And that's an 11.8% increase over 2023. That's a lot of resources.
Say it again,
1.38, or you can see $1.4 billion in tax revenues.
Saint Lucia is listening to that, okay.
And then on top of that, it added the 2.5% levy. And that levy generated $57.1 million from the start in 2023 and in 2024.
So added to the 1 billion, you have
inclusive, so the 1 billion is 1.4 billion is for the 2024 fiscal year. Between the levy generated 57 million between 2023 and 2024.
Right.
And that's $57.1 million that could have remained in the pockets of Saint Lucian's. Now, Titus would have made...
How much money is that, Tommy?
57.1 million.
$57.1 million.
And also the issue of aggregate demand. When you say aggregate demand, the more transactions, people have more money, people consume more, people People go to the supermarkets more, they can buy more groceries. The people go to the cinemas more often, they buy, and that stimulates and the multiply effect in the economy. By sucking this $57.1 million out of the economy, essentially, the government has severely curtailed persons' ability to meet basic goods and services, to purchase the basic goods and services. And beyond that, we know that they increase the price of bread, they allow the price of bus fares, and Titus made a very, very relevant point. Because when you talk about headline inflation includes your core inflation basket, which is your rent, your insurance, and that sort of things. A lot of services are largely in there. And then there's also the fuel and food, which are the more volatile components of that basket. When you add the two, you get headline inflation. These, because of the volatility and in fuel and food, they up and down, and they will eventually go back down, right? So governments need to ensure that the volatility in these components do not sip into your core basket. But the government literally did the reverse. So now what we're seeing is that Saint Lucia structurally has become more expensive because of bad policies on behalf of the government. So you pay higher for your insurance premiums, you pay higher for your rent, and these do not go down. So Saint Lucians have been, the government could have initiated policies that would prevent these things from sipping from a headline, from food, fuel, into the core basket. So we have now been made permanently worse off by these policies.
So where did that money go to, the 57 million?
Well, it went to the government coffers, and then the government now decides how it wants to use these resources.
Wasn't it 2.5% health and security levy?
Yes.
And that 57 million is from that?
Yeah, it's generated from that levy.
Did it go into buying medication at the hospitals?
Well, certainly, Titus can answer that.
That's what, well, we see for sure that our health situation has not improved.
Has not improved.
Our security situation has not improved. And therefore, we all know that that was a misnomer. The government misled the nation by calling it a health and security levy, when they always knew from day one. And this is the thing about this administration that the public must know. Why must an administration, so early in its day, when it has the entire public behind it, why must it start its administration by obfuscation, by hiding, by misleading? And you will see throughout the last 4 years, this has been the pattern of behavior of this government. Making you think one thing and the opposite is happening. This is an administration that has decided that the people of Saint Lucia should not be exposed to the truth, we should not be honest with them, that we should always find a way to trick them, to almost con them. That is really what you have seen come out. And it is playing itself out in so many ways. And we will not even come to that tonight.
Yes,
but it's playing itself out in so many ways.
So to confuse them enough so that they don't understand really what is being said to them.
Because the truth is, when you tell a nation, boy, we have to put a 2.5% health and security tax, the nation will say, no country on earth I know likes higher taxes. But when you hear health and security, you say to yourself, well, this sounds like something we can all make a sacrifice for, because it is our health, our security.
Yeah.
So if it was going towards that genuinely, you could see Saint Lucian saying, let us go. But when you know in advance that that is not the purpose, and you present it like that, you are misleading and misdirecting. And that is the hallmark of this Labour administration.
If when the United Workers' Party comes into government and removes this levy,
simple.
What benefits?
Very simple.
Briefly,
once we come in, and the policy of the government is that we shall remove this health and security tax. Tommy has given you the numbers that were collected from it. Now take that number, 57.1 million, and you know, just imagine that money being injected in the economy. It means, and when you add the multiplier,
the money will be there?
No, I'm saying just imagine the government not collecting that 2.5%. It means that the ordinary solution is now keeping that, now has it at their disposal. That money will now go through the economy. Small businesses will get an opportunity to benefit from that 5.1 million that they were not getting the benefit of before, because it was the government taking that. That now money now is able to be released. So small business persons, the hairdressers, and all these people can get a little something coming back to them right now.
Sure, and Joycelyn, I think there was a report done by the Chamber of Commerce, where they have a quarterly brief that they do, and when they surveyed the business sector, one of the policies that they felt that impacted them most was the health and security levy. It increased their cost of doing business, the cost of inputs, and we know that. And there's even inflation expectations. They had that sort of, the survey asked them, do they expect inflation to continue? And so people adjust their business operations, on the basis of, and so we believe that this is going to lower inflation expectations, and they will adjust it, and the final cost of goods and services throughout the economy should be cheaper. Just to make the point, it's a cascading tax. So whenever the 12.5% VAT, if you add on the 2.5%, it actually translates to be more than 15%. It's 15.3%. So Saint Lucian's on the goods that have both the health and security levy and the VAT are paying in effect 15.3% in overall in taxes between these two, and which again, what the reduction of the removal of this policy, this tax, is going to ensure that there's a lot more money circulating in the economy. And I believe that even in terms of when you look at the growth that the government talks about, I believe had they not introduced some of these taxes, the economy would have actually performed a lot better. But again, we believe fundamentally that a removal of this is going to bring reprieve to the Saint Lucian population, in particular the poor households that are struggling to put food on their tables. And this is going to be what a caring government ought to have done, to not exacerbate the cost of goods and services in the economy.
I'm Dr. Jocelyn Clark-Fletcher with my guest, Tommy Descott, United Workers' Party candidate for Castries South, and my other guest, Mr. Titus Priville, the UWP candidate for Babuno. Can you give St. Lucia a little info on, people have been complaining about those gas prices.
I'll let Tommy take this one.
Okay, Tommy?
Thank you.
Well, let's go. We're discussing it. Let me hear.
We almost entirely depended on fossil fuel to run our economy. It's the lifeblood of our economies. And so any cost, and the pricing of these is very, very sensitive to aggregate demand and the GDP and so on of our economy. But the United Workers' Party kept the price of petrol at $13.95. Even when prices were climbing, international prices. And now we've seen a Labour Party government who has kept prices at $16 or $16.50, even when other Caribbean countries, OECS countries, have reduced. Now, the public must understand that there is a methodology by which prices are calculated in Saint Lucia and the wider OECS, and that is what they call the fuel pass-through mechanism. It really tries to ensure that the vagaries or the volatility in international prices are reflected in the final price. So when prices are going up, one can expect that perhaps there's a reflection of that in the final price. Not perhaps, but there should be a reflection, and that's what the market pass-through should. However, when prices are falling, you should equally see that reduction at the pumps. And what we are not seeing is that the government has not passed on that savings to consumers. And so when Antigua, Grenada, St. Kitts, Dominica are now have $14 for a gallon, St. Lucia is stuck at $16. So what we're realizing is that the government is maximizing its revenue again. So what should have been a pass-through mechanism, passing on the savings in terms of lower landed costs to consumers, the government is taking all of it. It's literally hoarding the savings in the form of higher taxation. And so you are paying more at the pumps, but the government has kept the additional taxes. And again, if you look at the data, the government has generated perhaps the largest amount of taxation on gasoline and diesel products over its history. Again, what we believe the government can do and should have done was to have a sharing mechanism. So the reduction, let's assume that the landed cost was reduced by $1. The government, a caring government, could have said, I'm going to share that. I'm going to pass on 50 cents in savings for them, or keep 50 cents in tax revenues. But the government decided to take every single dollar of savings in the form of higher taxes. And what that means is that the average Saint Lucian now, I mean, I meet persons all the time, constituents, and they ask me, boss, I need to buy some gas. I need some support there. Again, it's a government that has overtaxed its people. And I would say we did some analysis around it, and we saw that bus drivers in particular are paying almost $8,000 more in the price in
Per year.
for fuel per year for fuel. We did the analysis persons with different types of vehicles, Swift and Honda CRV. You don't feel it at the time. Sometimes people don't. Before a gentleman said he used to fill his tank. He no longer fills his tank. He just pays $100, $50 wherever he feels he can. And that is what the government has done. The government could have lowered the price of fuel maybe two years ago. On the eve of the election, again, we see that they move it from $16.50 to $16, and they refuse to budge on lowering it because it's a policy that we've called them out on, and they will not budge because they believe that it will give us political mileage. But who is suffering? It's the average Saint Lucian at the pumps who's suffering. And so this is another field. We'll give the government a feeling grade on managing the fuel prices.
But okay, the government is taking the money, the consumers are suffering. But what about what do you call them, the guys that own the gas station?
Well, they're selling less fuel or two. But you see, Dr. Fletcher,
They're selling less?
Yeah, because the prices are higher. People, you see, whereas you would have spent more money, or you'd have spent less money, and people would have been coming to your gas station, filling up and going about this thing. The fellas not doing that. They only spend whatever they have. If it's $100 you have to spend on fuel, it's $100 you're going to spend. Because you have an individual person has a budget.
Yeah.
The thing that's happening though is that person is getting less value for the $100. Whereas they were going, if $100 could have put your tank at 3/4, with the higher price of fuel, the $100 would put your tank at half tank. And that's the reality. So people have to make decisions.
So why are they not complaining? Like, who the people like Jean-Marie and these people, why are they not
no,
complaining if they're getting less?
No, you see, you have to look at it from the point of view of the consumer. Yeah. The consumer does not, and it is the culture of our country right now, where whenever the Labour Party is in office, people do not speak. People are silent. People are afraid to speak. When was the last time you heard civil society speak on anything in St. Lucia?
Mute.
When was the last time you heard the concerned citizens speak?
Mute.
Nothing in St. Lucia. Because people are afraid to speak. I'll tell you something, Dr. Fletcher. The number of persons who are afraid to speak in St. Lucia, their voices will be heard on the 1st of December. They will speak on the 1st of December. Because right now, they are afraid to come out to speak, and that is the reality. When the United Workers' Party is in office, everyone and his dog and cat feels free to protest. Doesn't it tell you something about the United Workers' Party approach to governance and the respect of our constitution and how people's rights are vis-a-vis this administration? So this is really where the rubber is beginning to hit the road.
But some of them were negative, you know. Some of them were the negative voices. I mean, people used to hear was it Mr. Jean-Marie, the head of something for the gas people?
Yes, yeah.
He used to speak. But how come now he's silent?
You see,
If they increase gas prices.
it's not even the prices Mr. Jean-Marie was speaking about so much. He was making the point that by law, the excise tax that at the time when Mr. Shastney was in government between 2016 and 2021, when the price of fuel and the excise, a portion of the price of fuel in the price builder, there's a portion called the excise tax, which is what the government takes in. That is stipulated. It should not be more than, I think it was $250 at the time. And the government was getting a little bit over that. And Mr. Jean-Marie correctly said, hold on, you're breaking the law. The law says that the excise tax should be no more than $250. But today, the excise tax is over $4. And you had nothing. And you had nothing.
Yes.
So why is that?
I cannot answer for Mr. Jean-Marie. I'm sure he cannot, because the principle is the same principle. If the government is collecting more than it should, in year one or in time when the Labour Party, the UDP is in government. If they're collecting more when the Labour Party is in government, we should hear the same noises. You don't hear it.
Yeah, and like Tommy said, the prices are higher now.
But, well, you see, it all depends on who you're serving.
Yeah.
Who are you serving?
Not the people.
If you are genuinely interested in ensuring that the government and its governance are within the four corners of the law, you will speak out at any time once the government steps outside of the four corners of the law.
You'll be genuine.
But if when the government, another administration steps outside, it's wrong. And when your administration or the one you support step outside, it's right. It's more a reflection on you.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about you, not about the administration. It's where you stand, what's your principle, what's your value system, what do you believe?
So we're back, Saint Lucia, with Facts in Focus with my guest, Tommy Descartes, the United Workers' Party candidate for Castries South, and Mr. Titus Preville, the UWP candidate for Bavono. And again, of course, I'm Dr. Justin Clark Fletcher. Tommy, I'm going to jump in right here with you. You're a young person. Talk to us about this government and explain to the young people out there in St. Lucia, because I have some young men too, and I really want them to understand this thing, because what they're telling me and when they go to the bank is not the same story. This government thing on this mortgage.
Yeah, so the mortgage guarantee program or mortgage deposit guarantee facility, again, it targets a big issue that young persons face in terms of qualifying for loans to build their homes. And that is that deposit, a 10% deposit, which can amount to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on the basis of the size of the mortgage. Now, I've heard a lot of discussions about how does that differ from 100% financing. First and foremost, in our landscape, in the financial landscape, this is a promotion. 100% finances are promotional in it. Banks, it's not a staple that banks, that's not a practice that is constant for other banks. If they want to get more business, they come out with 100% financing. But I'll tell you, there is a risk premium that is tacked upon, and that's the interest rate. So when banks run a 100% financing, you have a higher interest rate on that. And that interest rate, over 30 years, that 2 percentage points or 1%, whatever it is, does translate to more than the $30,000, $40,000 that we are suggesting. So importantly, we must understand in Saint Lucia, there's a housing deficit of about 11,000 to 12,000 houses, units we need to build in this country. Now, government after governments have tried to take $20 million or $30 million and plow it into a development bank. How many loans? If you say the typical size of a mortgage is 300, 400,000, how many loans can $20 million really give you? Not much. It's a drop in the bucket vis-a-vis this $11,000 to $12,000. What we are doing is we are using a smart government policy. We're going to take $20 million out of our CIP funds, and we're going to use it to unlock funds that are available in the banking sector and the credit union sector. So you can take $20 million, and if you use it smartly, give a young person $20,000 or $30,000 as part of a deposit guarantee, and they now can qualify for a mortgage for 200, 300, 400. And there are limits to that. We're certainly not trying to give persons to build $1 million homes. We have to ensure that Saint Lucians have quality homes that are climate resilient. And so we believe that this can unlock over $300 million of credit that is tied up in the banking sector. Now for the banks, that's a big deal. They're going to get a lot of business, but also the interest rates that they pay on over that money, because they do pay what they call interest liabilities. They pay a substantial amount. Now you have all of this being unlocked in the economy. Young persons are qualifying for these mortgages, building homes, the construction sector is booming. This is going to be transformative, Dr. Fletcher.
But Tommy, let me just ask you. Take my sons. They want to buy or build a home that's going to cost them $500,000. Okay? So they're first-time home owners. They don't own homes. But would your program give them the 20% of that?
10%.
The 10% of that.
10%. So we have limits to it.
A cap.
We have a cap. We are going for the standard average home,
Right.
which is
So
between
not these
300,
people in that high bracket.
Yes, no.
First
It's
time. And they're first-time owners.
First-time homeowners.
They don't
And
own a home.
generally, first-time homeowners, we believe that it's a starter homes.
Right, the average person.
And what we want is to give Saint Lucian's ability to be able
Up to 400,000.
Up to 400,000.
That's good.
And
That's most people.
We must
in
add,
Saint
this,
Lucia.
this is really one of the means, because any serious government in a developing country like ours knows you must build your middle class.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so the
Right.
loans we're taking here, the quantum we're looking at providing a 10% guarantee for,
Right.
would cover a significant chunk of your middle class.
Of course.
So you have
many
the
people.
you have the
Yes.
outlier.
Yes.
And government policies generally are meant to address the majority. So you would have the outlier young person who may want to have $800,000, but that is not in the main what
No.
the general.
The big chunk.
Right. So your focus as a government is on ensuring you meet this larger chunk. And at the same time, this is the chunk we want to expand, which
Right.
is your middle class. And once your middle class expands, it pulls up your lower class. And of course, out of the middle class, the higher class also emerges.
Yes.
So if you address the middle class, you address both the lower class and the upper class in
Yes.
your society.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what government
And
policy is.
businesses, as you
yes,
say, Tommy,
yes.
will boom.
Yes, I mean, we anticipate there's going to be a boom in the construction sector. I mean, you're going to have plumbers, tilers, I mean, we'll have to import labor here. I mean, if you assume that annually we will have about 100, 150 homes being built, there's a lot of activity that is going to be in the economy, but also throughout. It's not just, for example, we have construction happening, the road construction. A lot of that is just one contractor having all of because of the way the entire value chain of that. But you now have, it's trickling down throughout the economy. So, but importantly, we want persons to own homes earlier in their lives and retire not having to be paying a mortgage. I think that's very, very important.
Right.
I know a lot of Saint Lucians who are now, who have retired and still have mortgages to pay. This policy is going to ensure that Saint Lucians can own homes earlier in their lives, and when they retire, they can retire without the headache of having to pay for a mortgage.
2 years, but still have it.
But this is really what we talk about.
Yes.
You see, this is about empowering young people. Because once you now have your home, you now begin to build equity in your home. And when you build equity in your home, it means you can leverage that home to start a business later.
Yes.
You can leverage that home to prepare your children for
Right.
university.
University.
So,
Can we
so
know?
you are setting up a
Yes.
cadre of young people to earn wealth, and wealth is the foundation for transformation, for intergenerational. So the next generation is not starting where this generation is. They have a platform to build on.
So Tommy, you're talking about the young man who is 24 years old and he's working in the public service or in the bank or at the hotel, you know, and he probably wants to get married probably about 30 years or so, but then he wants to have his own home.
Yes.
Okay, I have some young men like that,
Yes.
want to have their own property. And they can have a nice little 3-bedroom house, you know, because you know something, when you finish paying your mortgage in a few years, the government help you to be able to get that house because you don't have the assets behind, you don't have a grandmother or mother that have parents that can leave something so you can use as collateral, but the government help you get that, you build that little house. When you finish pay that mortgage, you know tomorrow you can add on that house.
Long before you pay the mortgage, once you have begun to build equity, meaning if your mortgage was $300,000 and you have already paid, and two things happen with homes. They appreciate in value because you're maintaining your property, but your land normally appreciates. So even if you have a $300,000 home and you have paid, let us say, $60,000, you might say you have $240,000 left to pay. But guess what? The value of your property has moved from $300,000 to $350,000. Right. So you all of a sudden you have a window of not just $300,000, you have $350,000 property, and you now owe $240,000. So you actually have over $100,000 of value that has been created, which you can use to leverage to do other things. So this is really where the United Workers' Party differs from the Labour Party. The United Workers' Party is about building people, giving a hand up so that you could stand on your feet and become independent. We're not in the business of giving $200 in a t-shirt and the voucher system as our staple. This is not how we work. We give a hand up. We don't believe in giving handouts.
But just to tie that in, I wanted to ask you, Tommy, how does that tie in for young people? It's the same way you give them this guarantee. Does that translate into when government build houses to sell to you? Because government can build some. I saw some houses in, was it St. Vincent? Or the government built some really lovely, Dominica, some really lovely 3-bedroom houses and sell to the middle class. So, or what you call the blue collar workers.
Yeah.
Well, how did that translate to like the Talvin estate that the government was building to sell? I guess to that kind they were going to attract. So would that still apply to those people buying those properties?
Sure. This really is financing. We are trying to ensure that young persons can access the financing to build their homes. So you may have government finance projects that are building homes at a certain price. All we are trying to create the avenue that young persons can access the financing on their merit. All we are doing is this issue of not having the deposit. We are coming in and say, okay, we're bringing the savings up, and that's fundamental. The average young person perhaps would have to take 10 to 15 years to save than $40,000 or $40,000, and we are saying we want you to own a home earlier. We're bringing the savings up for you. That's essentially what we're doing.
Right.
And so whether it's a public or private construction happening in terms of housing construction, it doesn't matter. All we are trying to do is ensure that young persons can access the credit earlier so that they can now build their homes. And like Titus said, build equity in there, and using that equity, they can send their kids to school, they can start businesses and create wealth in our country. And that is the fund. And like he said, rebuild our middle class. We have a shrinking middle class, and this is a direct policy. And I think the best indicator of a thriving middle class is home ownership. The biggest asset most persons will ever invest in the country is a home. And so this is a policy that is centered on building families, building communities, strengthening our middle class. And it's transformational. And I believe that every young person should go out and vote for this particular policy because it will transform their lives.
Yes.
It will transform our economy. And we see housing, the deplorable housing throughout the length of our country. This will be transformative, I guarantee you.
I am Dr. Jocelyn Clark Fletcher. We are on Facts in Focus, and we are discussing the issues that are pertinent to Saint Lucia on the United Workers' Party 7-point SOS for Saint Lucia. Gentlemen, we are in the final segment. And so I'd like to just briefly touch on, we've heard a lot about this national health insurance. People are asking how it's going to work, how it's going to benefit me, who is going to benefit, and So I'm giving you, this is our final segment, so just wrap up on this for me. I can just tell you there are lots of people, as you know, maybe the upper middle class and middle class that who would have health insurance that hundreds of thousands of dollars, who probably would not be interested in this $75,000 health insurance. But I guess the government is targeting that middle group of the largest group of people, where this would be a benefit to them. These people that walk around with the sheets of paper, or they walk around with barbecues and in asking you to come to buy tickets for barbecue for health and so on. So let's briefly talk about how this helps, what it is, what it's going to do for them.
I'll take a first stab at it, Dr. Fletcher.
Okay.
Tommy will come in. First of all, let us get it clear that every one of the politicians in the government right now, they have health insurance. I have health insurance. If it is good for the politicians, then it's good for me. Shouldn't it be good for every Saint Lucian?
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't think anyone should be above anybody else. In our country, we are building a country together. National health insurance The benefits are that when you fall sick and you're at home and you need to get to that doctor and you need to get that medication after you come from the doctor, first of all, you need to be able to afford to see that doctor. National health insurance works in the manner it has worked. It works everywhere in the world. You either have a card that allows you to pay upfront, meaning when you go to the doctor, you see the doctor, it costs $200 or $300, whatever the price. The doctor can deduct the portion that the health insurance covers and you pay the difference. Or you do as we do right now, you pay the money upfront, you fill out the insurance claim form and you get a portion of what you've paid refunded. The better way for someone who does not have health insurance right now and who does not have significant resources is to go to the doctor and present that card, let the deduction, meaning what the health insurance will cover, be deducted, and the person, the beneficiary, gets to pay the small difference. That will make it easier for persons to get the access to the doctor. Similarly for the medication that the doctor will prescribe. Similarly for the scans that the doctor may ask to be done, to be taken. So national health insurance is meant to improve access to healthcare. With that improved access to healthcare, it will help us approach our health in a more preventative manner.
Right.
So we are going to do our health checks earlier. And those health checks, because we know now we can better afford them, it will increase persons' willingness to go and do those checks. And technically, as time goes by, reduce the incidence of more chronic health issues. So the benefits of a national health insurance policy is significant because the health of a nation is the wealth of a nation. Any government would wish to ensure that as many people in their country as possible, they are in good health because that is how they get their wealth. Now, Tommy will speak on the financing a bit more, but just let me put in a small package for you, Dr. Fletcher. The Labour Party has been going around and very disingenuously pretending that they do not know how group insurance works. We have group insurance in the teachers' union. We have group insurance in the civil service. The principle of national health insurance is just a wider group of people. Nothing different, the principle is the same. So it is not a case where the government has to take a population of 180,000 people and say, let me find 180,000 multiplied by 75,000 of money to ensure people have health insurance. That's not the case. Nowhere in the world. And the Labour Party surrogates and the Labour Party stalwarts and the persons who speak in that language know better. And they should not speak in a way to try to deny Saint Lucians something that they know that is good for the people, because the ministers of the Labour Party all have health insurance. So it is not a case where they should have it and the ordinary person should not have it. Why deny the ordinary person something that you have and you know it's good for you? So I want to say this. The financing of the health insurance will be done in the same way as any responsible government approaches matters like that. Those of us in the society who are in the capacity to raise a certain income and can afford to pay the premiums or the contribution to the health insurance, all of us will make that contribution. For those persons who are unable and are not able to meet that premium cost, the government will pay. Because Dr. Fletcher, in the long run, it is better that the government finds that money to pay to ensure people do not get sick, to ensure that persons, when they get sick, are able to access healthcare. It costs the state less to pay for that than to wait for people to get sick and to then try to find the money to get those people well. Because now the person is not working, they're not contributing, and all of the society is paying for it. So this is how the United Workers' Party approaches the development of its people. We look ahead. I want to say, Dr. Fletcher, also, that there was a time in history, not too long ago, in between 1973, 74, thereabout, when Sir John was introducing what today we know as the National Insurance Corporation. At that time, it was called the National Provident Fund. And when he proposed it, he was asking every worker to pay 5 cents on the dollar towards the National Provident Fund. History records that the Labour Party stood in opposition to this. That is the Labour Party history on the matter, which is well preserved for every young person to understand.
We'd never have known NIC.
They had no intention of letting what we know today as NIC, which we all call for the benefit of us all. They did not want that to happen. So I am not surprised that today, because the United Workers' Party is trying to do something for the benefit of all Saint Lucians, the Labour Party in typical style will oppose it because it is in the interest of the people. I say to the people of St. Lucia, do not be fooled by this. Do not let your mind get distracted by this. The Labour Party record is well documented. Your interest is not their interest. And if you have any doubt, go and read it up yourself. All the young people who have Google, go and read it up yourself. Tommy.
What a good point. Time to bring in Tommy, a young man. You say so.
Sure. Well, Dr. Fletcher, I think Titus has done a phenomenal
job on this.
Explaining it. Just to see that other countries have done it. And you have in the TCI, not too far from
Turks and Caicos,
who have done it. And this is an extension of our social protection system.
Absolutely.
We have all of these other services, social protection services, but we believe fundamentally that health insurance is going to ensure that every Saint Lucian has economic access. There's physical access. You can build all the best hospitals, you can build the best polyclinics, but if people cannot access these services, then we have failed them. So, so this is a transformative initiative on the financing, and Titus has explained it. Persons who can't afford this, they have opportunities to top up. But those who really cannot afford, and those who perhaps really need it, the state will come in and ensure we provide. And that's going to ensure that we can do the pre-checks earlier, we can do all the tests and so on. So you can now, the non-communicable diseases, persons can have the lifestyle changes and the productivity loss and the cost, the burden on the state is going to be reduced significantly. But fundamentally, again, these are policies that focus on, ensuring that it's about dignity. The Labour Party is always about, you having to come to them. I've heard persons say, well, my rep gave me $20,000 or gave me $10,000 to do this and that. And that's all well and good. But we want to put systems in place to ensure that when persons are sick, they don't have to go and beg a rep or go and have. They know that the government has put a program in place, put a system in place that they can get the care that they need.
Absolutely.
And that is why the United Workers' Party is fundamentally different from their approach is one that is about getting political mileage from it. But we are about ensuring that every single citizen can afford and access healthcare with dignity.
Yes. So there you have it, St. Lucia. These have been my guests, Mr. Titus Preville, the UWP candidate for Babono, and Mr. Tommy Descott, the UWP candidate for Castries South. I have been your host, Dr. Jocelyn Fletcher. This is the first in the series of Facts in Focus with our candidates. Thank you so much for joining us.